Hello React Native developers, what is going on? Welcome to Can It Be Done in React Native. This week, we take a look at what the cool kids are doing on Snapchat. Hello guys, I hope you are well. William here, recording from beautiful Zurich, Switzerland. This week's episode is based on an app which I usually wouldn't have installed on my phone, namely Snapchat. Someone on Reddit asked, can it be done in React Native? And posted this video showing off this very cool swiping out effect. When I first saw the video, I found it to be extremely cool. And I also didn't recognize that this came from Snapchat, which is hilarious because a couple of days before I was messaging on Twitter with Evan Bacon from Expo. And we were talking about Snapchat and I decided to install it to see if there's anything interesting going on the app. And I missed out on this effect completely. When I installed it, I found the UX to be quite confusing, which I think is done by design because they want to exclude old people like me. So they want all people like me to be confused and not use it. So only cool kids are using it. So, but I do have the app installed on my phone right now. So let's take a look. So this is a discovery tab. And what you can do is tap on the story and then you can swipe down. And you can either like cancel the touch, goes back to full screen position, or it snaps back to place where you open the story. So one more time, swiping down. The more you swipe down, the smaller it gets. Cancel the touch, it goes back full screen. And then, boom, snap to its original position. So when I played with this effect on my phone, I got really excited. I got really excited for a couple of reasons. First, someone genuinely asked on Reddit, can it be done in React Native? So that's a great fit for the channel. And then so far in previous episodes, we only dealt with very simple gestures and we always use the scroll view. So the scroll view is a very convenient high-level structure to handle like swiping in one direction or the other. So obviously here, the kind of gesture we have is much more, you see, you can move it around like this. So it's a bit more complex. And I have some experience using the pan handler from React Native, but I find it to be extremely low level. And for very simple things, you need to write quite some complex code. So there is a module called React Native Gesture Handler that is shipped by default with Expo, which promise essentially this high-level construct like the scroll view, but for much more complex gestures. And so I knew when I played with this effect that this was an opportunity to, take this module for a ride and see if it, holds its promise. And then the last reason I got really excited is that people in the community call this shared transition, where it feels like, you see, it's like the same element. So you have two screens, this scroll view here, and then this full screen view. And it feels like the element is shared between the two states. And I saw a lot of tutorials on Medium and YouTube about this effect done in React Native. And every time it's done, it's done using non-native animations. And so I got excited because I was wondering, can it be done using native animations? And I think would be a good opportunity to use another new module shipped by Expo, which is React Native Reanimated, which claims to enable you to build much more complex animations, staying on the native side. So, and I meant to use this module since a long time. So I thought this is going to be a good opportunity to finally get to use React Native Reanimated, but also the React Native Gesture Handler. So how would we do this in React Native? Well, So we have a scroll view here with these thumbnails, no problem. Then when we tap on one story, we can measure the dimension and the position of the thumbnail we just tapped on and display a second image which is identical on top of it. So you don't see that anything changed essentially, even though now you have a new view on top of this scroll view. And then we can animate the thumbnail to grow to the full screen size. And so already this, people are, usually don't do this using the native driver of React Native, but hopefully with React Native Reanimated should be doable. And then, so here we have the full screen position. So when we swipe down, we make the view draggable, and the more we swipe down, the smaller it gets. So here nothing too like pretty classical, I would say. And then when we remove the tap, we can look at the velocity of the touch in the y-axis, and if it has some velocity going from top to bottom, we snap back to place. So we know the original position of the thumbnail, and so we can animate from the full screen dimension or whatever is the dimension when you're moving it around to its original position. Then we make it invisible and we make the thumbnail appear again. So, and if the velocity is 0 or negative to 0 on the y-axis, we just snap back to the full screen position. So again, when you tap, we measure the position and size of the thumbnail, make the thumbnail actually disappear. So you see, so you see here, it doesn't appear, it's like invisible. We overlay another thumbnail on top, which we grow to the full screen position. And then we move it. So snap either back to full screen or snap back to place, depending on the velocity when you release the gesture. So guys, what do you think? Can it be done in React Native? Let's have a look. Guys, before we get started, I would like to let you know about React Native Elements. React Native Elements is a premium starter kit for React Native. It contains 80% of what you need when starting a new React Native project, from static analysis, boilerplate navigation, and lots of UI components, which are organized in different categories: food, social, music, photography, travel. So lots of great UI components that you can reuse, and really just a great boilerplate in terms of code quality, static analysis. And I just upgraded it to Expo 31. This is what I use for every of my new React Native projects. I keep it up to date with the latest React Native APIs, latest best practices, and latest versions of Expo and React Native. You can try it out on iOS using TestFlight, or Android using the Expo client, or downloading the APK file. If you have a new React Native project coming up, I recommend you check it out. So React Native Element at react-native.shop/elements. All right, guys, let's get started. Lots of things to be done. So yeah, let's get into it. I created a project using Create React Native App, and I already did some boilerplate code. You can get it in the video description just in case you want to follow along with this video. And so in the app.js, I have some stories data, same data than from the Instagram episode. I just decided to add a video because I thought it could be fun to try also with a video element. So really like on Snapchat to see how it looks like. So same data, same code also where, I load the stories, and once the stories are loaded, I have the discovery component, which so far is simply just a scroll view mapping over the stories, and that displays these thumbnails that you can see here. And if we go into story thumbnail, just have a container displaying the image on top. So nothing too crazy. In fact, I'm just wondering, I might not even need this container. Could just return the image directly. Right? And maybe add some border radius 5. Okay. So that looks good. And we need to wrap, because so we're gonna, this flickering is annoying. I think it's because we have safe area view within the scroll view. I think I'm just gonna remove it for now. And yeah, maybe add some padding top 64. Oh, I think that's why it was flickering. So I had a mistake here. Up. Now should be okay, thanks to ESLint. So this is why you should always have ESLint on. Okay, so now what we want to do is tap on a story, on a thumbnail. Tap on the thumbnail and measure it, because then we know where to start the animation from. So let's do that. So story thumbnail. I'm gonna add a touchable without feedback. And on press event we will get as a property. Okay. So on press we select the story, so maybe I can create select. Okay, let me just to make it more readable. Okay, so we can do this select story, pass story as parameter. So here actually we're going to create a state which contains a story that is selected. So we know if we need to display the modal or not, essentially. So discovery state equals story, which is a selected story. We can even call it, make it more explicit, call it selected story, up. And okay, let's create the select story method. So far it's just going to be a set state, but we know that we need to add more things to this method later on. So selected story, which we get as parameter. And if if there is a selected story, we show the story modal. So we can call it story modal and pass story as property. So selected story comes from state. And we need to create the story model component. Okay, so let's do that. So story modal, we get story as property. Can import this guy. From story model, and I'm gonna need the style sheet as well. So let's create a style sheet. So container, we're gonna use a absolute fill. And we can show the image that we get from the story property. So we get it from story.source, and we also need to add some styling to this guy. So again, we're going to use also absolute positioning. So we need to use with null, height null for the resize mode to work. Let's see how it looks like. Null. So this one actually can be empty or null, and I can initialize a state to selected story equals null. Okay. Select story. Perfect. Okay, now if I tap, I get the story, so that's good. So now what we're gonna do is animate. So here you see it's abruptly shows the story in full screen, and we want to animate from the original position. So what we need to do is to do a measurement of each when we use select story, we need to do a measurement of the thumbnail, and for this we need a reference of the component. So we are going to need to store an array of references. So I can add a constructor here. and I can call super, and so we're gonna create this I don't know how to call it, thumbnails. So these thumbnails will contain an array of references for each thumbnail, so we can map over the stories. So stories.map, and for each story, I mean, I don't even need this parameter here. I can just return React create ref. I don't like that. This flickering, it's really annoying. I will remove the safe area view if this persists, or maybe use the one from React navigation. Let's see later. So we have our array of reference, so that's perfect. And I can even maybe pass the index here as parameter. Yeah, okay, this is not working, so I'm just going to use view here. And add some padding top 64 pixels to be investigated later. Okay, so let me pass the index as parameter as well. So if we do thumbnails, index, so current because we use create a ref, and we can ask the measurements, and we should get position. So now let's create the measure function in the thumbnail component. So it's measure and should return position, which is, so this thumbnail, we're going to create a ref for this component here, and so this thumbnail dot current dot ref dot measure in window, and takes a callback. Also, because it's a callback, I need to return promise here, so I'm going to return promise. Don't need the async keyword here. Okay, resolve, and yeah, so we can call this method. And as parameter, I think we get x, y, width, height, which we can resolve as an object, x, y, width, height. Okay, just to quickly check that this works, let me log the position. Oops, this is why I need to use async. Okay. So that didn't work. What's the issue? Oh yes, sorry about that. We forgot to create the thumbnail ref. So create ref, and we can set it to the image. Still not working. Okay, so it's not found in thumbnail actually. Oh, I need, okay. Sorry, so I need to, of course, set here these thumbnails. Oh my gosh. And we haven't started any, that's a lot of struggle, and we haven't started any gesture or animations yet, so please bear with me. Let's brace ourselves, but yeah, no, hopefully we hopefully should be fine. Okay, so now if I tap, still not working. Okay, now it's undefined, is not an object. And I do have something strange. If I look, yeah, it's .ref. Okay. So, and here I have 8 with y and x. So that looks good actually. So we know here these parameters are correct. Yes, perfect. So now we need to also pass the position as parameter. You can just maybe add it to the state. So position is null initially, and position can be position or null. Oops. We can pass it as parameter here. Okay. So now here we also have position as property. So let's animate now, and we can import Reanimated through the animated module from Expo. So here when I use animated, it's not from React Native, it's from Expo, and it's Reanimated. And I think I'm gonna need to create some animation values. So I'm gonna create a constructor for this component, props, call a subpair. So we need translate X, translate Y, and to change, to animate on the width and height of the component. So, and by the way, so it's interesting because so the main value proposition of Reanimated is really that you can build extremely complex animation on the native side, and you have like this Turing complete language that allows you to essentially declare complex animations to run on the native side. So that's like the main value proposition of the module. But I noticed that you can natively animate on the width and height of an element, which you cannot do with vanilla React Native. And I think it's interesting that they don't market this as an added value, because I mean, I ran some tests even on slow Android device. It works amazing, and a lot of people are using are building animations on the width and height of an element, and therefore not using native animations in React Native, and having really poor performance on Android. So I just found that it was interesting that I haven't seen any marketing somehow for this feature, but let's create on animation values. So translate X. So I guess can get value from animated. And the first position will be so new value, initial position will be X, right? So we have props and we have position, and we have X, Y with height from props dot position. So translate X, translate Y, and width and height. Okay. And now can I use animated.image, hopefully? And then, you know what? Let me just just thinking, should I wrap it into a view and just use it directly? Okay, maybe let's try. You know what? Let me just wrap it in a view for now. So animated view. Especially because, you know, I was thinking, like, should I wrap it or not? Because here we're using image, but maybe later we're gonna play with a video component as well. So let's just you know, make it separate somehow. So I'm gonna set some style, which we can create here. So we're gonna use the absolute positioning, and then width, height, and then some transform. Oops. So translate X, so translate Y, translate X, which are these values here. So you can just translate X, translate Y, width, height. Okay, let's have a look. And animated. So that doesn't work. Is that because of this? Let me just use directly React Native Reanimated. I just thought it was cleaner to import it from Expo, because yeah, that's not the issue. Oh. Yeah, I need to figure out a way to import it from Expo, because here he thinks, oh, you don't have this dependency, because it's export it through Expo actually. But I will do it offline. So now if I tap on a thumbnail, so this is cool because you see here we didn't set the border radius, and you see here I tapped and it lost the border radius. So you know that now the modal is on, and in fact I can even like add some background color, let's say green. Perfect. So now we know that we are in the modal, but we use measure. So we have like, it's overlays perfectly on top of the thumbnail. So first of all, I'm gonna add some border radius here. And yeah, perfect. So now let's animate. And if we go to the documentation of React Native Reanimated, so we're gonna use this guy to set our original animation. And so what we want to do actually is so we have 4 values: translate X, translate Y, width, and height, and we want to spring these values to, so for translate, the translation 0 for both translate, and then width of the screen and height of the screen. So I can just put it here. And so I looked at, so I ran Spring animations before using the default, so the animated API from React Native, so the vanilla animated API. But then I searched in the documentation for Spring here, and it looked very complicated to me. So I think what I did was just looked into examples and found an example where I could just copy and paste the Spring animation. And I think, yeah, you see this function run Spring. This is what I'm gonna use. So clock, I'm gonna use a new clock here, which I think I can get from, yes, I'm just gonna import these guys directly. So clock, velocity, we don't need. Value, destination, perfect. So velocity, I can set 0. Clock, I can create one here. And I think one thing I need to do, so React Native Animated, is to use, so Spring, just use default parameters here. So stiffness 100, damping 10, mass 1, same, velocity default 0, that's what we have as well. So let's see if this works. So we have our run Spring function. And so here we can run a block. And so run spring. So value destination, perfect. So let's say value here is translate x, destination is 0. So we want at the end of the animation translate x to be assigned the value 0. Block is not defined. For y, we want 0 as well. For with, oh, I have it here actually. For width should be the width of the screen. And for height, the height of the screen. So I need to create these two variables using the dimension module. Okay. Oops. So let's see how it looks like now. So nothing is happening. I'm wondering if set position value. If I need to inside to set to set the position, actually to set the position to the value directly. So value set position. Yes, so you see it springs nicely to full screen position. So that's good. And now we can add the swiping gesture to when you swipe down to drag the image across the screen. So for this, we can use React Native gesture handler. So let's check out the documentation quickly. So what we want is a pen gesture handler. So again, this one can be imported directly from Expo. I just need to figure out what are the name of the exports, but that's how you would. So you see here, ESLint is complaining, and that's how you would fix these ESLint errors. So there's actually, I think, an example here. We can use. So I'm just gonna set it here. Okay. And then we can add the onGesture event handler, where we can bind some of our animations values to the gesture, so that's gonna enable us to do the dragging. So I'm gonna add this guy. Oh, actually I can just do it here. This on gesture event, yeah, perfect. So we're going to use event from Reanimated. So that's good. Use native driver true, that's perfect. And so here we can bind our animation values. So we have, I think it's called translation X. We can bind translate X, translation Y. And then we're gonna need velocity Y because we want to know when we, release the touch, if we go back to full screen mode or go back to essentially the thumbnail. So velocity Y, which I can create here. So 0, sorry. And then we're gonna need to bind the state of the gesture, because we want, for instance, the spring at the beginning, we want to apply it only at the beginning, and then at the end, when we release, we want to apply either the animation that goes up or that goes back to the thumbnail. So we need also to track the state of the gesture in the animation. So I'm gonna create also an animated value for state, and the default state is undetermined, and this one you can find from documented from the here in handler state, so from the gesture documentation. So this is going to be our initial state, and so this state, perfect, which I need to import. Okay. Let's see. And yeah, one thing. So we want on Snapchat, this dragging of the story is only enabled when you start swiping down. So it's not on any gesture. And here we can use, so React Native gesture handler so the pan gesture handler has a very convenient method for that, which I think is active offset Y. So we can set active offset Y for, let's say, 100 pixel. I think on the Snapchat app, you really have to swipe quite a bit to activate the touch. So because they want, to be able to detect some other touch, right? Maybe you're tapping on the story, maybe you're having some sort of other interaction of the story. So maybe we can put like 100 pixel, and then we know we can drag the story. So we can just, and so you see, I mean, it's so cool to work with. So it's like working with the scroll view. So super high level construct, but then for, complex gestures. And I think it's really cool that we can finally do these things without using the vanilla React Native pan handler, which is just like, it's so low level that to do such things like would be so much more work. So let's see if it works. It does not, and I think, but you see it still moves a little bit, and I think I know why, because here we need to disable the spring animation when we're touching the picture. when we're touching the story. So I can add some condition here. So where's it? Did I just created? That's not good, right? I created, because that's conflicting with the state. I mean, we don't have a state here for this object, but that's conflicting with the, okay, whatever, let's see. I think like we're overwriting the this.state property from React. Okay, anyways, let's see. But that doesn't feel right. So if condition equals, so this state is undetermined, we can run the Spring. And then, so then this should allow us to hopefully drag the picture. What? Crashed? I'm doing something wrong here. Okay. So what's happening? Let me check. Oh, that's called translation. Why? This might be why it crashed. Yes, so you see, we enable now. Of course, when I release, nothing happens. But when I swipe down, I can just move it around like on Instagram. So now we need to enter the release gesture. And I think there is a method on gesture event. Or is it from the base? Yeah, so I think we need to bind this property as well. Oh, what? Just wanted this guy. Seriously? Okay. And we can bind the same handler here. Okay, so now we need to on release. So condition when the state is the animation is finished. So state equals, I think it's called finished. And okay. So we have two conditions. So when it ends and the velocity is equals or less than 0, and when it ends but the velocity is greater than 0. So we need to use the end. So it's really cool. You see, you have like this Turing complete language that you can use to define animations on the native thread, to declare animations on the native thread. So that makes me a bit things harder, because so it's a level on it's like a language within the language. So there is it's one of a level of abstraction above React, and it makes also things a little bit harder to debug, which I think is really normal when we have like one layer of abstraction on top of the other. But when you get the hang of it, it's very cool and it's extremely powerful. So so the second condition is less, what do we have? Lesser than, do we have like, if I go back to the Reanimated documentation, less or equal, this is what we want. So less or equal than 0, so this velocity y. So that's our first condition, and we need to import. And this one is that greater than 0. So we need to import. Make a couple of imports. And less or equal, greater than. And okay. So then we're gonna have a block of instruction for each. And I think here block is optional. I will need to try, if you pass just an array, it infers that this is a block. So if it's 0, we spring back to the full screen position. So translate x0, translate y0, width is the width of the screen, height, okay. And then if it's greater than 0, we go back to the thumbnail position. So this will be props.position.x, this props.position.y, this props.position.width, this props.position.height. Let's have a look. Okay, so here I'm dragging the image. Boom, goes to thumbnail. And now, of course, the modal didn't close, so let me refresh, but then we're gonna add the closing state. And now let me release, boom, snaps back to position, and now I'm gonna add some velocity, boom. Pretty cool, right? So now we need to do a couple of things. First of all, you saw when I tapped, the thumbnail didn't disappear, so we need to, in this component, you know, when we need to add like some selected property, and when it's selected, we don't show the image. And then once we snap back to, so once this animation is run, we need to call back on the discovery component to say, okay, now the modal is closed, right? So we're going to need to have, and actually that's pretty amazing because there is a call operation in Reanimated that allows you, once you're done, I mean, you can use it for many things, but it allows you as well to, once you run this complex animation, to call back the JavaScript userland. So that's very convenient. Okay, so first, let's make the thumbnail invisible if it's selected. So selected boolean up. So we show only if it's not selected. And then, oops. So here we have selected if selected story ID equals story ID. No. Evaluate null is not. Ah, okay, yes. Of course. So either selected is false. No, selected must be true. Yes, and perfect. Okay, so now let me cylinder. Okay, so you know what? Let me do that. Yeah, even better. If selected, return null. Okay. So now, yeah, but no, that's not that's not good. Oh my. Let me just return an empty view then. Styles image. Okay. So now you see I'm drawing the image and it's, you know, it's blank below, so which is good. Boom. And now we need to have, so you see here the modal is still open. So we need, because here in the state, selected story is still, so we need to have like a callback that, you know, sets selected story to null again. So I'm going to create on request clause. Actually, let me just do it here. Up. So we set position null story null. So we are gonna need to call this attribute in our story modal when this animation, yeah, has finished to run. Sorry. So I'm thinking here if I should pass, let's say, a clock to, I should pass a clock here as parameter of run spring, and then from here I could, when the clock is finished, has stopped, I could, you know, do the call and use the callback. Is that what I should do? I'm trying to find a way to detect when this is done, essentially. Because I'm thinking I'm thinking of something, but it's not, it's a bit ugly, because one thing I guess I could do is condition. No, you know what? Let me just pass a clock as parameter, because one thing I was about to do is like add a condition. If height is back to the original height, then close, which I guess is good, but I guess it would be cleaner to do it with a clock. Especially, you see, if we would have an animation where it would bounce, so at some point, you know, you would have these two values equal, but then the animation wouldn't be over. So probably it's not clean. Okay, you know what? Let me pass an optional clock as parameter. But then, yeah, let me just try it like this for now. Condition equals height. And then this means that it's over, so we can call. So the first argument, it's values to watch, I think, which we don't need. And then I can call on request clause, which we get from the props. And so I need to import call. Story modal, line 32. Where is the syntax error? I don't. Oh, sorry. Okay, snap back. And now it works. Okay. So you can select different stories. Just some probably misusing code here. Not sure how. Maybe I will try to clean this up offline. And so now what we can do is when I drag down the story, it should get smaller. And then the last thing also, maybe we can try to see how it looks like, because here we have a video configured, so we can see how it looks like with a video. So yeah, so let's add a new condition. When the state of the gesture is active, we want to do some interpolation on the height of the story, depending on how much we've translated on the y-axis. So we can add interpolate on the height, input range, how does this work actually on okay, so actually we need, when the gesture is active, we can set the, let's say, the height of the story based on the translation, on the Y translation. So input range is, let's say, 0 to height of the screen, and output range should be height of the screen to this props dot position dot height, and same for the width. Okay, so I'm having some syntax error here. Let me check. Probably missing some parentheses. Yes. Okay. Oh, need to import interpolate. Okay, so you see here it nicely scales down, exactly like on the Snapchat app. Very nice. And I think the last step now is to, in the story modal, we can just try to play with videos if there is some video available. So we know that this one actually is a video. So I can import the video element from Expo. And actually I need to check. Up. So if story video exists, we can return a video element. If not, we return the image. Oops. So here we use story.video. I think it's called video. Let's check. Yes, call video. Boom, boom. Style. Let's see if we can use style sheet, absolute fill. Maybe we need to set the, let's see. So here we have the video. Oh, you don't see it, sorry guys. So here we have the video, we translate it. Snap back. Perfect. Or go back. Oh. I can go back to the cancel the touch. Whoop, like this. Oh, boom. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so that was a bit a rough ride. I mean, my skills with Reanimated are very rough at the moment, but I think next week probably we'll do something again with Reanimated, but much simpler, so we can consolidate our skills with Reanimated. But extremely powerful library. We implemented a fairly complex shared transition, staying on the native thread in terms of animations, which I think it's pretty new in the React Native space. And yeah, so let me know what you guys think, and I'm looking forward to talk to you next week. So in the meantime, happy coding, happy hacking, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.